One of the cool things about poker is we all play the game slightly differently. You could say we each have our own signature style. In fact, most of your profit in poker comes from identifying what style your opponent is playing, while at the same time preventing him from identifying the style that you play. When you're seated at a table, though, it's a huge task to figure out the style of 8 other opponents. So you need a tool, something to simplify that process, to generalize this endless diversity of styles into something more manageable. So let's do that now. Let's talk about every style across 2 dimensions, and the result will be 4 general styles, 4 categories we can bucket all players into. The 2 dimensions are how many hands you play, and then how likely you are to bet when you play a hand. So the first dimension, how many hands you play. If you play very few hands, we call that tight. And the opposite of tight is loose, playing a lot of hands. Now the most tight you could be in Texas Hold'em is just playing pocket aces, 1 hand. And the most loose you could be is playing all 169 starting hands. Let's say you're in a hand. How likely are you to bet? The vertical axis now. If you're very likely to bet versus check, we call that aggressive. You're an aggressive player. The opposite of aggressive is passive. A passive player at the extreme won't ever bet. Even if he has a hand, he'll just check and call. And of course, if he doesn't have a hand, he's not bluffing. A passive player just checks and folds when they don't have it. So hopefully you notice now we have 4 boxes. And one of them you might even have heard before, tight aggressive at the top right, abbreviated tag, and maybe you even heard of its cousin to the left, loose aggressive, abbreviated lag. Now, the boxes at the bottom, they don't have names because they're actually losing styles. The first, loose passive, we're going to outline in red. Stay away from a loose passive style. You're going to lose money and you're going to lose it fast because you're playing a lot of hands and you're not winning the pots. You're not preventing opponents from outdrawing you when you are ahead. Even if an opponent doesn't outdraw you, because of your passiveness, the pot's small by the river. A loose passive player we'll call a new player. You might remember being a new player and you probably thought poker was an action game and you wanted to see a lot of flops. If you got any piece of it, even bottom pair with a bad kicker, you really wanted to see showdown. You were curious. And of course, you didn't have the patience to fold marginal hands pre-flop. If you're still a loose passive player, try to transition to a tight passive player. Now, it's still a losing style. It's slightly better, though, than loose passive, so we'll outline it in orange. A tight passive player is really what we would call a thoughtful fish. So thoughtful, there is an improvement here. You're tight. You have the patience and the knowledge now to fold most hands pre-flop. Maybe you're only playing pocket 10s plus and ace-jack offsuit plus. But your big downfall is that you're passive. You're too scared to bet when you have a hand for fear that you'll push weaker hands out, and you're too willing to call when you have middle or bottom pair. If you're a thoughtful fish, watch some Beanstalk videos, practice a lot. We want to get you up into the tag region. A tag player is what we would just call a good player. Most of the break-even and modest winning players in the game of poker are tags. They're solid, good players. A tag is marked by playing up to about 20% of poker hands, but no more than 20%. If you don't know what the top 20% of poker hands are, check out our video, 169 Hands. As you get a good handle on tag, you should start experimenting with the lag style, the loose aggressive style. We write it in yellow or outline it in yellow because we want you to use caution when you start playing a lag style. It's probably not a destination, It's a very volatile style. You're going to win big pots and lose big pots. You're playing a lot of hands, up to about 30%. The main strength of the lag style is your table image is so loose and aggressive that when you do hit the nuts, a straight or a flush or a strong 2-pair, you're probably going to get paid off. So these are the 4 styles. Where should you play? Well, we recommend tag as you're learning, and once you're a break-even or slight winning player, we actually want your destination to be a mix of all 4 styles, heavily weighted though toward the aggressive styles. Almost every pro in the world does this. They're a mix of all the styles, and they shift their game based on the tendencies of the players at their table. And you can imagine sometimes it's okay to become passive, play one of the bottom 2 styles, and give your opponent, if he's very aggressive, some room to hang himself. Let him continue betting, even all 3 streets in some cases, when you're almost certain you have the better hand.